when the brook dries up. What to do when the brook dries up. I'm taking this from 1 Kings chapter 17, 1 through 9. Somehow, many people have mistaken the idea Okay. Somehow people have made the mistaken idea that when we give our hearts to the Lord, it's like a fairy tale. That is, you accept the Lord as your Savior, and then you live happily ever after. You ever felt that way? A lot of time it's done that way. Now, if that was true, there would not be any lost people on the face of the earth. Just think about this. You accept the Lord and you live happily ever after. There would not be any sinners on earth. Everybody would come to Christ, wouldn't they? But they know, sinners know, as they watch your life and my life, we have problems just like they do. It's just one of those things in life. There's no such thing as in this life here that we live happily ever after. Now, it don't matter if you're rich or poor. Doesn't matter if you live in what country you live in. Doesn't matter what family or person you belong to. No one is exempt from troubles in life. It's important we understand that. I run across people sometimes and they act like, well, listen, I'm a Christian. Why am I having these troubles? Why am I having these problems? And they act like, because like I said a while ago, it's a fairy tale religion, that you accept Christ and you live happily ever after. But there's no such life on the face of the earth. No such life. Now, one day we'll get to heaven, we'll have a perfect life. I mean, we'll not have one single problem. It's going to be the perfect life. But until then, we live here on the earth and we have problems. We have problems. In fact, Peter tries to warn us in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12 through 13. He says, Beloved, thinketh not strange concerning the fiery trials which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice inasmuch as you are partakers of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, you may be glad also with exceeding joy. So Peter tries to say, hey, don't think it's strange. Don't think it's strange because you have fiery trials. Now, some people feel like, well, I have fiery trials, but I have more than most people have. I have a whole lot more than most people. They feel that way. But that's not so. Now, I'm sure that Job felt that way because Job had a lot of problems, didn't he? He really did. And he said in Job 14:1, man that is born among a woman is few days and full of trouble. So Job said, man, I really got trouble. The time you were born here in this life here. Now, some of God's choice servants have suffered in this life here. They have suffered in this life here. And Elijah was one of those that was a man of God, but boy, did he suffer. He had many, many trials, many trials. He went through crisis after crisis, you see. And so God chose to take care of him during those times in three ways. God used three things: a stream, a widow woman, and ravens to feed him. God gave him this here wonderful situation where here that a stream that he could sit beside it, and it was relaxing. If you ever sit beside of a stream, you understand what nice it is. And boy, you said relaxing, and water just, going by. And it's a wonderful place to be. But the problem is this here stream went dry. Yeah. One day he looked out there and he noticed the water's getting lower and lower. And then it's getting real low. And then it got so low, it was a trickle, and it got to the place where it was a dry bed. Now, God provided this for him in his life, and he thought, my goodness, this is wonderful that God's given me. But now, the blessings of God is drying up. You ever feel that way? The blessings of God in my life is drying up, you see. Now, there are people today say, well, when those times come, well, it looks like bad luck is set in my life. I'm having a streak of bad luck. It has nothing to do with bad luck. God is a sovereign God, and he determines the things in your life and my life. And you may not recognize it, but he does. And there are trials that comes your way and my way, and the fact is we get so think, well, this is wonderful, this is wonderful. And then all of a sudden, the bottom drops out. And we've got trial after trial, crisis after crisis. We wonder where it come from. What's going wrong here? Makes me think of a husband. He was in a coma. He was kind of coming in and out of a coma. And one day we came out of a coma. He saw his wife and he says, come here, honey. And she came over there and sat by his bedside. And he said, you know what? You've been with me all through the bad times. When I got fired, you were there to support me. And when my business failed, you were there. When I got shot, you were there by my side. When we lost the house, you gave me support. When my health started failing, you're still by my side. When I think about it, I think you're bad luck. Now, it doesn't matter who's by our side. Bad luck comes, right? It's not bad luck. For us Christians, we know exactly what's going on here. And God here has a plan. And God brought him by this wonderful brook, and he was enjoying it, and it was so great and so wonderful, and everything just going so great in his life. However, the brook began to dry up. Got down to a trickle, and then became just a bed, dry bed. But God had already made provision for him already, even though the brook dried up. Look here in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 1 through 9. And Elijah the Tishbite, who was the inhabitant of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the brook of Cherith, that is before Jordan. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed thee. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and dwelt in the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening. And he drank of the brook. And it came to pass after a while that the brook dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. Looks like things going pretty good, doesn't it? God gave him a nice brook that he could drink water from, and drink from, and wash from, and everything. It's going great. But it seems like sometimes when the brook goes dry, we just feel like that God's turned his back on us. We don't understand why. Why? I can't tell you the times I've told God, why? You know, I can't explain it. But that's part of my life, part of your life. The brook is a wonderful place to be. But notice when he went to the brook, it dried up. Now, what does that mean? The brook went dry for him at this time here. Well, first of all, we find out Elijah was doing the will of God when the brook dried up. Now, we're kind of prone to believe that, if the brook dries up, we must be doing something wrong. We must be at the will of God. I mean, all of a sudden, God's blessing us and blessing us and blessing us, and then the brook dries up, and we say, hey, we must be at the will of God. We must never make the mistake to think that we're out of the will of God when the brook dries up. Now, it's true in some cases that that's exactly why it dries up for some people, because they're out of the will of God. But Elijah is in the will of God. He's in the will of God, and the brook dries up. But there are some people, because they're not living right, yes, sirree. I'll tell you one right offhand. How about this guy called Jonah? He got the will of God, and it almost cost him his life. It's a dangerous thing to get the will of God. And we know that. But this is not what happened here. We should never assume because things are not going right in your life and my life that we're out of the will of God, or somebody else might be out of the will of God. Sometimes you'll hear people say about somebody, they're having some problems, and the reason they're having problems, they're out of the will of God. Wonder how they know that. They must be God. You don't know. I don't know. But we don't never know that situation at all. But sometimes we assume this is the case here. See? Actually, we find Elijah was in the will of God. And that's why the brook went dry, because God said, okay, I've got something else for you to do. I've got something else for you to do. So it was why he was in the will of God, not out of the will of God. Don't make that mistake. Also, he delivered God's message during this time to King Ahab. We find in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 4. And Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, and before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. The brook went dry when he was in the will of God. And the brook went dry when he was actually God's message to King Ahab. And he said, hey, guess what? It's not going to rain for 3 years. Now, if I was a weatherman, I'd say there's a 50-50 chance of rain tomorrow. You can't go wrong, can you? If it don't rain, I said 50-50. But oh my, this guy stretched it. He said, it's not going to rain for 3 years. He became the mouthpiece of God. It's not going to rain until I say so. That's what. He said, not going to be any rain or dew. Now, they had, of course, dew years ago. Before this, the rain came, they had dew to take care of their crops. And he said, it's not going to just not rain. There's not going to be any dew for 3 years. He's stepping out, boy. I mean, he's the mouthpiece of God. You see, when God's man speaks and God speaks to him, he can say that, and he can say, thus saith the Lord. Now, I can't say that. I can't say this message that came straight from God. I can say God inspired me. I cannot say, thus saith the Lord. But he got his straight from God. He's a prophet of God. Today we don't have prophets like that. We have preachers that are inspired. God don't say this. And God told him, said, now you tell Ahab it's not going to rain for 3 years. And not only that, it's going to be any rain for 3 years. Also, we find out he's in the will of God because he went where God told him to go. Look in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 2 and 3, 2 and 6. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the creek Cherith, that is before Jordan. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there. So he went and did according unto the word of the Lord. For he went and dwelt by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and the flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. There's nowhere in the Bible There's no indication in the Bible whatsoever that Elijah is out of the will of God. He's in the will of God, but yet the brook went dry. And he's saying that God is just not going to rain. Now, we need to put this a foremost thought in our mind. Just because we are a child of God, we're not exempt from trouble. I wish we were. It'd be nice to live on the earth and not have any problems, wouldn't it? But just because we're a Christian doesn't mean it. But yet you find Christians all the time saying, why me, Lord? I go to church every time the doors open. I tithe, I witness, I do all these things, and why do I have all these problems I'm having? Elijah was in the will of God, I tell you, and the brook went dry. It went dry. It said in verse 7, and it came to pass after a while that the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Now, it went dry when he was doing the will of God. I believe with all my heart that I'm doing the will of God in my life. Some people say, preacher, why don't you just go ahead and retire and move to Florida? We could do that. We can afford that. We could have a good life in Florida. We could do all kinds of things. But I'm in the will of God. But because I'm in the will of God, it does not mean I have problems. I have good days. I have bad days. Elijah had good days. He had bad days. That's just part of life in the Christian life, you see. Just part of life. None of us are exempt from trouble. It says, and the brook went dry. Now notice something else. Elijah was doing the will of God when the brook dried up. And Elijah was also enjoying the blessings of God when the brook dried up. Elijah had good days and bad days. He had some good days. I tell you right now, he had some good days. I'll show you in a few minutes. He was enjoying the blessings of God. I tell you what, God is so good to us. And sometimes if we start talking about God's blessing, it's like some people say, he's bragging. And you're just talking about the blessing of God. I mean, sometimes life down here, we know that heaven's going to be a wonderful place to live. And I'm looking forward to it. But listen, if there was no heaven and God was to bless me in this life the way he blesses me sometime, I would just say I'm going to be happy down here on the face of the earth. But we're not exempt. We're none of us exempt from trouble. See, we all have our share of it from time to time. It seems like the bottom falls out. I remember in high school, this young fellow and I was double dating. And this young boy that I was double dating with, he was very stout. I mean, he was very stout. That's a nice way of saying he's very fat. But we were double dating. And we went to the state fair. And we decided we were going to ride this here ride that they had. And it's a round bucket. I don't know what you call it. There's some people, you get up on top of that bucket and look down and see people inside that bucket. And you walk inside and just find yourself a place to stand by the wall. And I was standing over here beside my girlfriend, and Walter was on the other side with his girlfriend. And we were enjoying ourselves. Man, that ride started. It started spinning and spinning and spinning. It got going so fast. Centrifugal force forced us against the wall. I looked over at Walter. He looked like Charles Atlas. Man, that centrifugal force, I mean, was really pressing him hard and pressing me hard against the wall. And we were enjoying the ride, and the bottom fell out. About 6 feet, looked down and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it stayed down there, and we stayed against the wall until the wall came back, the floor came back up to get us. That makes me think of the Christian life. I tell you, sometimes you enjoy the Christian life, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out. And you say, whoa, whoa. I was having such a good time, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out, you see. Now, what do we do in a time like that? There's something we have to do. We have to take understand that God is not through with us yet. God's got more to tell us, to do for him. Now, this man that God here tells us about people that he says, guess what? Now the bottom fell out, and he told Ahab, not going to rain for three years. That's a long time without water. Do you know that? We go a couple of months and we say, man, we need some rain. We need some rain. It was on a drought already, and it was no rain. He said, not only it's not going to rain, it's not going to be any dew. I mean, he really was stepping out. He says, not going to be any rain or dew until I say so. That's a man of God, isn't it? He could say, thus saith the Lord. I can't say that because I'm not a prophet. But he was a mouthpiece of God. And he got it straight from God, and he gave it straight to Ahab and said, God said it's not going to rain for 3 years. It's going to not be any dew for 3 years. Thus, he could say, thus saith the Lord. He was a prophet. Yeah. Now look here in verse 3, we found out God tells him where to go, and he does. And verse 4, God told him what to do, and he did. And he had here this here crisis after crisis as the brook went dry in his life. But he obeyed God. He obeyed God. Now look in verse 8 and 9. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. Now, we don't always remember we have crisis after crisis, but God does not have a crisis. Looks pretty bad, Elijah. Get thee and go to Zarephath, and I've made provision for you there. The brook's gone dry now, but I've got more provision for you over here. You know what? If he had not went, he'd be in trouble for sure. But he knew exactly what to do. He knew this was not the end. God's got something else planned for him. He said, I've commanded a widow woman there to feed thee. He didn't know the plan, but God always knows the plan, you see. And God had a purpose in telling him to do this. Because God said, I'm not through with you. Just because the brook's gone dry, I'm not through with you. No, sirree. Read a story sometime back about a man that was walking, and he was in the ocean swimming, and a genie appeared to him and said, he took the bottle, opened it up, and the genie popped out. And the genie says, I'm going to give you one wish. He said, really? Yeah. What would you like? He said, I would like to know the future. I'd like to know the future. He said, I've got some stock. And boy, if I knew what the future was, I'd have some inside information, and I could make a killing. Man, I could get rich overnight if I had that inside information. I'd like to know the future. Bingo. Appeared before him was a newspaper, and the headlines talking about the fact of a certain day in the future that his stock was going to shoot up so high that he would become rich. He would become rich, and had the day the stock was going to shoot up. He said, oh man, I'm excited. But then he read the obituary column, and he died before the day the stock went up. You think you will know the future? God has a future, don't he? You can hardly handle the present right now. If you knew the future, it'd probably scare you to death. And God said, okay, now I've got making provision for you, and you're going to have a widow there to take care, she's going to take care of you, and so on. Now it seems like when the bottom fell out, that everything had come to an end in his life. Man, he was having such a wonderful time. That brook was so beautiful, so relaxing. He could drink from it. And God would send ravens to feed him in the morning time and the night time. Boy, he had it made, didn't he? But then the brook went dry. Why? Because God was not through with him yet. God said, go here to Zarephath, do this, do that. There are 4 things he's got to do yet. And so God said, the brook went dry, but that does not get you off the hook. This is not the end of your life. I've got more things for you to do. The first thing we found out that he went there to help provide for this widow woman. And she provided for him, but he also provided for her. Isn't that wonderful? Also, we found out that not only that, her son dies, and he raises him to life again. That was a highlight in his life, I'm sure. Oh, it was nice by the brook. Yes, sirree. He was enjoying all that stuff that God had for him. But there's nothing now. Boy, all of a sudden, he's able to help the widow woman in her situation. And now her son dies, and he's able to raise him to life again. Boy, that's outstanding. This is getting good. If you stayed in the brooks there when it went dry and complained, it never would have happened. Also, we find out he's yet go to Mount Carmel and face the prophets of Baal and call fire down from heaven. Can you imagine what a highlight that was in his life? Man, he preached there and he preached there, and the fire of God came down. Boy, what a highlight in his life. That would have happened if he stayed in the brook when the brook went dry. Also, he's got yet to face Jezebel. Never would have happened. He could have said, I'm going to find me another brook. Mine's going dry. I'm going to find me another one. If he had, he'd be out of the will of God. God caused that brook to dry up. God caused these things to happen in his life. And friends, when God happens these things in your life and my life, we can't run from him. All we can say is, God, help me. I know you got better things for me. And he does. I want to ask you tonight, how about your life? Has the brook gone dry? Are you discouraged? It's essential that you recognize that everybody has problems in this life, if you be a Christian or a non-Christian. Everybody. But God has a purpose in us Christians having certain problems, because God's got better things to make us do this and cause us to do this. Go here to Zarephath, do this and do this. And God showed him all the way different things to do in his life. In 1925, a man named Floyd Collins was exploring the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky, and he got stuck between 2 rocks. He was 50 feet from the surface, and he got stuck. Icy water was dripping in his face. The rescuers came in and diverted the water, and they talked with him. They calmed him down, but they couldn't get him out. He began to become unglued and stuck in the cave. He was able to see the light, able to see where he wanted to be, hear voices, but he could not get out. So slowly he began to have ravening psychosis about everything from chicken sandwiches to angels and white chairs. The newspaper got in on this, and 10,000 people came out to see him, but they sold hot dogs and sandwiches. It was a sideshow. 17 days later, Floyd Collins died in that hole, able to see where he wanted to be, but not able to get where he wanted to be. Let me ask you, are you satisfied where you are? As a Christian, are you really satisfied where you are today? Or is God trying to push you further and get you where you can be? I have not, like Paul said, I have not apprehended, I have not got to the place where I really want to be, but I'm going to press forward. I'm going to keep pressing forward. I'm going to start doing things I've never done before. I'm going to start praying more. I'm going to start reading my Bible more. I'm going to start attending church on a regular basis. I'm going to start witnessing. I'm going to press. I'm going to make myself do these things and press forward for greater things. Now, if you're satisfied being stuck in a cave, you'll stay there to the day you die. But if you're not satisfied, God will get you to a better place where you can do greater things. And Judy, I believe God's going to bless you and this young lady here in a marvelous way about filling that bus for the Lord. I used to drive a church bus. My bus that I used to drive, I averaged 70 per Sunday. I had a big bus. And that's 70 per Sunday. Our church got so big with young people and kids, we had to put the teenagers in the auditorium because there's no room to hold them. We had 90 young people in our teen class. Now, those things happen with people who says, I want to press forward. I'm going to quit complaining about what this is and that will. God's not through with me yet. God's want me to do greater things. And he does. Everybody here. Don't put yourself down. Don't let the devil say, oh, you ended up, you're through. You're through, the brook's going dry with you. You might as well just be settled, content. No, God's not through with you. He wants you to do greater and greater things for the Lord. I look back and I see Gabriel back there in the back. And I believe God's got his hands on that young fella. He might be a preacher one day. Don't know. Don't know. You never know what God's going to do with people that is reaching forward and say, I want to do more. I want to do more. This morning, Gabriel came in my office and said, calls me, Papa, you got some Sunday school material I can use? I got some boys and girls to teach this morning. Isn't that wonderful? Got a young girl right here. She could be home tonight watching. I don't guess Daniel Boone is on anymore, is he? I used to love to stay home and watch Daniel Boone. And she could be home tonight. But she wants to sing for the Lord. Did you ever find that song yet? All right, look up for next week, okay? Okay. She needs a video to play the music for her. Let's close in prayer. Thank you for being tonight with us. We got almost 30